My name is Dr. Grinfas-David, and I am the Vice President of the Center for Israel Education. We are in Atlanta, Georgia. Because of the unfolding events in Israel, your teachers and your administrators and your school community thought it would be a good idea to have me Zoom with you so that I can answer some of your burning questions about what is going on in Israel these last few days. Teachers and students, if you have friends or family who are in Israel now that you are concerned about, please raise your hand. I also have friends and family in Israel who are serving now in the IDF and who have been impacted by the events, and we are all thinking of them and their well-being today. So I am thinking of you as much as I'm sure you are thinking of me and my family. When there are times of need, we support one another. And that's what I'm here to do for you today. I will not be showing you any of the images from the war, and I'd really prefer that you not look at those because they are hard to see. War is not a pretty picture. It is, however, a fact of life. And over our long history of 4,000 years, the Jewish people have known many times of conflict and persecution and oppression. We are going to get over this too. Israel is still strong. So we're going to talk about this in a way that will help us understand things like, how did we get here? Why now? What's happening? What can we expect? We don't always have good answers to everything because, as you know, things are still unfolding on the ground. We cannot look into our crystal balls and predict the future. But what I am here to do is to answer as many of your questions as possible. So I'm thinking of you just like I know you're thinking of me, and we're all here for one another. How did we get here? Why now? Well, many of you have already heard about and learned about the Abraham Accords, peace treaties, agreements. The Middle East is changing. Israel now has agreements with 6 Arab nations. Just a couple of years ago, that wasn't the case. But all too often, the Palestinians have been left out of those agreements. Now, in the past, Arab countries told them, we will not have agreements with Israel. We will not make peace with Israel until your needs are taken care of. So the Palestinians feel left out and left behind. In the last 2 weeks, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke before the United Nations. And also United States President Biden spoke. And we got from their speeches the sense that perhaps the next agreement is coming, perhaps even with Saudi Arabia. And there was great excitement about that. What we are seeing, the violence, the attack on Israel, is Hamas's way of saying, we will not accept any political agreements anymore with Israel. We won't take it. So this is coming now as the 5th conflict with Hamas. You might remember when you were young or little, there were other conflicts like this where we saw rocket fire and the Iron Dome system protected Israel from rockets. That's happening now too. But this attack is different, very different, because Hamas fighters entered Israel into towns and kibbutzim and did horrible, horrible things. This is one of those moments where we say this is different. Yes, it's like previous conflicts, but this is very different. It's different in the damage that was done. It's different in the surprise coordinated elements it had. It's different because so many Israelis have been impacted by it. And it's different because we don't have a quick resolution. This is not going to be over very quickly. This is likely going to take many days, if not weeks and months. Things are still unfolding. In the last 2 weeks in Israel and in other places, Israelis have been watching documentaries and reminiscing and thinking about the past, because this year we commemorated 50 years to the Yom Kippur War. And in 1973, there was an attack that also surprised Israel. And Israel was unprepared for it, or watched things happening, but didn't quite prepare enough. And it feels a lot like that today in Israel, where again, we were caught off guard. How could that be? So for Israelis, this is not just a moment of grief and sorrow, but also a moment of reflection. Did we really learn from our mistakes in the past, and how can we do better for the future? So we are seeing still the miracle that is the Iron Dome system protecting Israeli citizens. And what we are seeing now is the IDF take control of the situation. And we're going to talk a lot about the IDF, about Hamas, and what's taking place. What we know is that Israel will not allow for a sixth future conflict with Hamas. This cannot happen anymore. Something has to change. These pictures are from one of the really beautiful kibbutzim called Kibbutz Be'eri, which is just outside of the Gaza Strip on the border in Israel. It is a beautiful place to be. And just outside of some of those kibbutzim and towns in Israel, there was a music festival going on to celebrate Sukkot, which I know all of you did. And these places and these people found themselves under brutal attack, which we're not going to describe. But you can see the aftermath picture of the destruction. This is not a legitimate Palestinian freedom-fighting event. This is a terror attack. Women, children, elderly, civilians, not the army. So when I say to you that we are so heavy-hearted, some people around the world are saying that this feels a little like Israel's 9/11. Do you know what I mean by that? On 9/11, the United States came under attack. It was a coordinated attack. It was a surprise. And it did not target the American troops or America's leadership or politicians. It targeted regular everyday people going to school, going to work, going about their lives. And so in many ways, people are saying, yes, this is similar, but also it's different, because if you think about how small Israel is, just 10 million people, the amount of people who have died, and the fighting is not over yet, it feels like 30 times as big or 40 times as big as a 9/11. So everybody knows someone who was impacted. We are a small community of people. We are all interconnected. And we are all feeling this very, very deeply, as I am sure you are too. So the goal of Hamas was not to benefit the Palestinian people. The goal was to hurt as many Israelis as possible, as many civilians as possible, and to take hostages. That's a problem. That's a problem. A lot of people also say, gosh, this is really similar to what happened in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. And yes, there are some similarities, but I want to remind everybody, Sadat did not attack Israel in order to destroy Israel and wipe it off the map. Sadat attacked Israel because he wanted his territory back. He wanted the Sinai. He wanted the United States to engage in the Middle East and to recognize Egypt's claim to territory and to work out a solution. Hamas is only interested in one thing, and that is the total destruction of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. This is not about going back to borders. This is not about territory. And it definitely is not for the sake of the good of the Palestinian people, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who pay the heavy price. Let's remind ourselves, this is what Hamas wants. They are a terrorist organization. I'm going to share with your teachers the Hamas charter. The charter is sort of like their platform of this is our goal, this is who we are. And that charter specifically says their goal is to destroy Israel and the Jewish people. It's not a secret. So I don't want you to look at this as a legitimate claim for their freedom. It's not that. We feel very deeply and heavily equally for the Palestinian people, the civilians, the innocents who are suffering under Hamas's leadership in the Gaza Strip. So I just want to make that very clear. We heard Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu say, this is different. This is war. This is not an operation. This is not something small and targeted. This is war. Israel's government officially announced, yes, Israel is at war with Hamas. And I want to be really clear, we are not at war with the Palestinian people. Israel is at war with Hamas. The goal of this war, of this operation, we are calling it Swords of Iron in Israel, is to eliminate Hamas and never ever have it rebuild itself so that there will not be a sixth conflict with Hamas. That's the goal for today. So we don't know what this is going to look like. We don't know how to go about that. I think we are all going to wait and see the events that are going to unfold and hope and pray that Israel is successful in doing that, because this really is a terrorist organization. I want to also share with you again this idea that there is no moral equivalence between the IDF, which targets terrorists, not civilians, and what the Hamas has done to us. It is not the same. Israel right now is receiving a lot of support from countries around the world. But the Hamas also has its supporters. And so it's really important to understand that not everybody agrees with us. We have to raise our voices. We have to make clear what the history has been. Hamas did not recognize us in Oslo like the Palestinian Authority or the PLO then did. Hamas does not want a political solution, and Hamas does not want to live in peace alongside a state of Israel. There's no justification for this kind of act. None. And so we have our work cut out for us. We each have to sort of stand up and say, no, this is not okay. And Israel has the legitimate right to defend its citizens and to respond. The United States is one of Israel's most important allies, one of the first to come out with one of the most supportive statements and actions. On their way right now is a carrier fleet of the United States to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. And this is a real show of force. We call this deterrence. I don't want anyone else to think that they can join this war, because there will be a response. That's what the United States is saying by putting a carrier fleet in the Mediterranean Sea. Who could join this? There's Hezbollah to the north. There's the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority to our east. There are Arab Israelis within Israel who will often voice their support for these kinds of attacks. We also saw 2 years ago that some of them even rioted against their neighbors in support of Palestinian fighters. So Israel has to be very careful, but that's not all. We suspect who else is behind this. We know that the Palestinians and Hamas in particular receive money from Iran and Qatar and military support. So by the United States sort of showing their presence, they are saying, don't join, don't take action, because this will spread further. So far, for the most part, that is happening. But I will tell you that there have been skirmishes in the north with Hezbollah. There has been action taken. There have been responses. So it's not quite clear cut, and only the future days will tell just how much this will spread or not spread. And we also do not know exactly the extent of what US support means. We're pretty sure that they are going to help us restock. What does that mean? We're going to have enough anti-rocket ammunition. We're going to have enough Iron Dome. We're going to have enough supplies for our troops. We already know that the US FBI is helping Israel to coordinate a search for hostages that were taken. And all of that support is super appreciated. But will the United States actually put soldiers on the ground to help Israel? Likely not, but it could be. And so it's going to be important for you all to look at who around the world is supporting Israel in its time of need. Now, many of you, as I said, are on social media, have seen videos. I want to direct you to things that are uplifting. Israel has a lot of support these days. I don't know if you saw in Las Vegas, U2 performing in that giant sphere, that miraculous ball with so many lights and videos. In their performance last night, they changed the lyrics to one of their songs in support of Israel. And it was very, very moving to see. They have lots of fans. Some fans are pro-Palestinian, some fans are pro-Israel. But by having them come out and say, we are in support of Israel in this way, it really helps to change the hearts and minds of people around the world. So find and follow people who know their history, who can share with you their positive things. Don't just go down the rabbit holes and look at all the negativity. That doesn't capture who's really out there on social media. I also want to tell you all to please be careful. Do not believe everything you see. It's not a reliable source of information. If you want answers to questions, if you want to see videos that are real and true, you will go to our website or you will go to other trustworthy and reliable websites to get your information. You can follow wonderful people, including Yosef Haddad. I listed them here. Yosef Haddad is an Arab Israeli who speaks out against Hamas and really clarifies for the world, for his millions of followers, what it means to be an Arab Israeli and to enjoy being a minority in Israel and to have equal rights in a democracy where the other countries do not afford that. So you can follow really important, trustworthy people who spread messages of hope and peace for the future. And I would like for you to do that, to know that you are not alone. You are not powerless. You are the future leaders of our Jewish communities. You have a voice and you have actions that you can take, small and large, and they matter. So whether you are saying the prayer for the state of Israel or the prayer for the IDF, your voices matter. If you choose to write letters to support the troops so that they will receive care packages, you will matter. If you would like to raise money in support of Israelis who have been impacted by the attacks, or anything else that your heart desires, if you see a need, fill a need. That's our job when we say to each other, Kol Yisrael arevim ze leze. We are all responsible for one another. And just like Israel will come to you in a time of need, this is your opportunity to come to the aid of Israel in any small way that you can. And I trust you to be creative and to investigate those needs and to find ways to support them. I have included here just a few options, and I just want you to know something that I think is amazing. Today and yesterday and the day before, classes in Israel's schools were canceled because of the events, and that is to keep people safe. Because even though we have Iron Dome, and even though we have the IDF, rockets are still being fired at all areas in Israel, and it's really important to be close to your shelter. Sometimes you only have seconds to get there. Teachers have to take care of their families and make sure that they're safe. In some families, troops have been called up, fathers, mothers, to serve at this time. And so families are taking care of children. And so school cannot go on as normal. But Hebrew speakers in the diaspora around the world and Jewish studies teachers have come together to provide online school for kids who have to be in the bomb shelters so they don't miss out, so they feel connected, so that they feel the support of Jews around the world. There are incredible opportunities to contribute and to inspire. And I want you all to know that these things are going on immediately as soon as we heard of the needs. So find your ways to contribute, be impactful, and be meaningful. This is your call to action. For many of you, I'm sure, we've not experienced a time of war or a major attack. This is one of those times where you'll say, I remember where I was when the war broke out in Israel. We have that in Israel for the Lebanon War in 82, for the Gulf War in 91, where we sat together with our gas masks on, just in case, 73, 67. Every generation has gone through something. Some of you have grandparents or ancestors who were Holocaust survivors. We have a long history together of having people attack us. Why? Because we are Jewish or Israeli. Together, we will overcome this, and we will find the ways to nurture our wounds, our hearts, our souls. We will mend them together, and we will find ways to stand up and to act without fear, to say, we are here. We're not going anywhere. You cannot intimidate us. And although we are going to mourn together, we're going to come back stronger. We have here the prayer for the IDF, and in the next slide, I have the prayer for the state. Please join me with the Hebrew in the prayer for the IDF. משברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל, העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו, מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה, ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה, ומכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון, ויקוים בהם הכתוב. כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם, להילחם לכם, עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם. ונאמר, Amen. And join me please for the prayer of the state. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלנו, ברך את מדינת ישראל ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו, הגן עליה בעברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגיני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, ועטרת ניצחון תעטרם. ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה. ואת אחינו כל בית ישראל, פקדנה בכל ארצות פזוריהם, ותוליכם מהרה, קוממיות לציון עירך ולירושלים משכן שמך, ככתוב בתורת משה עבדך. אם יהיה נידחך בקצה השמיים, משם יקבצך אדוני אלוהיך, ומשם ייקחך. והביאך אדוני אלוהיך אל הארץ, אשר ירשו אבותיך ויורשתה, והטיבך והרבך מאבותיך. ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולשמור את כל דברי תורתך, ושלח לנו מהרה בן דוד משיח צדקך, לפדות בחכי קץ ישועתך. הופע בהדר גאון עוזך על כל יושבי תבל ארצך, ויאמר כל אשר נשמה באפו. אדוני אלוהי ישראל, מלך ומלכותו בכל משלה, אמן סלה. May we all have peace in the near future. There is no doubt in my mind or in anybody's mind that Israel is strong and Israel will win this war. So I know you're concerned just like I am, but I don't want you to be worried. Israel knows how to protect itself, and it's going to do that. And I pray for your aunt and for my family and for all of our friends and family in Israel. I know they're going to be safe from here on out. These things happen for so many, many reasons. We see it with Russia in Ukraine. We see it now with Hamas in Israel. Sometimes countries go to war for resources because they don't have enough to support their population. And so they go and they take it forcibly. Some countries don't recognize other countries' right to exist as a sovereign nation. So they go in and they say, this is ours. You have no right to it. Sometimes it's a fight over land. Sometimes it's a dispute that starts small and grows big. There are a lot of reasons why countries go to war. Sometimes it's because of religion or ideology, the way people think. They want to force their opinion and power on other places in the world. The UN was created to stop that very thing from happening, and it's not always been successful or effective. What we have to do is work with our allies, with our friends. Numbers of countries together can stand up for things like freedom and democracy and the right to exist. And together, we're stronger against bullies. And that's what you're seeing now. Israel, the United States, Canada, countries around the world are all coming together to say, this is not right. This cannot happen anymore. There will obviously be behind the scenes talks between the Saudis, the US diplomats, and Israeli diplomats in order to keep the hope alive and to keep some kind of momentum. But for now, while there is an ongoing war, it's difficult to see how the Saudis will come to a public forum to say, yes, we are ready to negotiate normalization. So Hamas may not have succeeded in stopping this entirely, but they may have delayed the timeline of when this will take place. They are voicing their disgust at the attack. They are voicing their support of Israel. They are also, in the same breath, voicing their support for Palestinian civilians. What we have seen from the first 48 hours of social media, where Hamas not only posted their videos in glee, but also showed their celebration at the suffering of innocents, is what we call in soccer a self-goal. I think it worked against them. And it showed that these are not legitimate actors in the region. These are just terrorists. So it's very hard for any country to come out in support of Hamas. But what they are saying is that we would really like to see as few innocent Palestinian civilians as possible harmed in this engagement. Yeah, we can. We should. God willing, someday we will. But you can only share, just like when you share a toy, with somebody who is willing to share. If the person next to you is not willing to share and doesn't want you to have any time with that toy, can you still share it? Is that sharing, or is that entirely giving up? We want to share the land with the Palestinians. That is the goal. That is the desire. And there are a good number of Palestinians who want to share it with us. And they are not the problem. The problem is within the Palestinians, there are factions that totally do not recognize Israel's right to exist. And you cannot share with them when their only goal is to destroy you. There have been what we call in negotiations carrots and sticks. Imagine you're trying to move a donkey along, right? And you lead it with a carrot, but if that doesn't work, you also kind of hit its rear end with a stick, and maybe that will move it. Similarly, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian people, over the years, there have been multiple attempts to offer them deals, agreements, incentives, and also sticks. If you don't, then the problem is that the Palestinian leadership has failed the Palestinian people time after time and has not taken either the carrots or been incentivized by those sticks. US President Trump tried to offer a deal that would have given the Palestinian people not only their own state, but billions of dollars for their economy, for their people, for their infrastructure. And it was turned down by the Palestinians. So it's not that it hasn't been tried. What I'm telling you is that it's not enough. The Hamas will never be satisfied until Israel is gone. And that's just not going to happen. We have been asking ourselves this question for centuries. For centuries. Whether it's in Spain and the Inquisition and the expulsion of Jews from Spain in the 1400s, whether it is during the Holocaust in Europe. Why? Why are we targeted so often just for being Jewish? We haven't done anything to justify it. There is no reason. Sometimes hate is hate. And the only thing that we can do is stand up against it with love and explain to people how we contribute to the world in positive ways, and that we won't tolerate hate. And we need to find allies to do that with. We can have conversations with people. We can change the way young people are educated about Judaism, about Israel. And each of you, whether you like it or not, you are a representative of our people. The more you learn and the more you can speak about what makes us wonderful people, contributing people, smart people, having a culture and a religion and a nation and a state that gives back to the world, the more minds you will be able to change. And that's all we can do. Sometimes we're not going to be successful in changing the way other people think about us because their minds are closed and their hearts and their souls are closed. The capacity to rebuild, yes, Israel can rebuild. Do people want to? And it might take a few years. I was listening to a father who lives in one of the kibbutzim close to the Gaza Strip, a beautiful Jewish kibbutz, and he said, I was one of the founders. I built this place with my own hands. I built our family home. This will always be my home, even with all the horrible things that happened here. I want to live the rest of my life here. But he said, I also have young children, and I have to think about them and their future too. And I'm not sure I can stay. And so it's not about whether Israel can rebuild. It's about whether people will have the determination, the strength of spirit, and the trust to go back to their lives as they were before. And maybe not for several years, and maybe they will. The Israeli spirit is very, very strong. So we'll wait and see, and we'll help if they want it. That's a really hard question. Right now, there's no proof of that. It doesn't seem likely right now that that's their goal. The Saudis have a lot of interest in aligning with the West and being part of the West. The Saudis are also engaged right now in a conflict in Yemen, and the Yemen forces that they're fighting there are an arm of Iran, just like Hamas is an arm of Iran. Iran is operating in a lot of places beyond Iran's borders. It supplies weapons, it supplies training, intelligence, money. The Saudis do not want Iran meddling in Saudi Arabia. So I would find it really confusing if they were at all involved in this. I believe I am telling what's happening, and I am not trying to shy away from how awful things were. Let me be very clear. But because we also have younger students, I am not going to show or tell or give the Hamas my time and my attention. That is not what makes us a Jewish nation, and that is not how we respond in moments of crisis. What I choose to focus on isn't the lighter or the heavier or the nonviolence or the violence. I choose to focus on what we do in times of crisis and how we respond to them. Let me be very clear. That attack was horrible. And there are no words to describe the atrocities and the brutality of what happened. But it is not appropriate to be discussing the details of that, especially since we have young people joining us. Almost every kibbutz, town, and city in the south, all around the Gaza Strip, was attacked somehow. But more than that, the Hamas is firing rockets into Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Ashkelon, the Galil, and even the north of Israel. So there is really no place in Israel that hasn't felt the impact of this attack. Absolutely right. Yes. So here's what happened. In 2005, Israel started bringing Jews back from Gaza into Israel. So there were no more Israeli settlements, no more Israeli soldiers, no Israelis in Gaza. That was in 2005. In 2006, there were elections held in the Gaza Strip. By 2007, the Hamas had managed to kick out everybody else who was a rival. So the Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, all of them had to leave the Gaza Strip. So even though Hamas was elected, you still cannot call the Gaza Strip a democracy. They were elected by the Palestinian people, not because they're a terrorist organization that wants to hurt Palestinians and Israelis. They were elected because the Palestinians thought that the leaders were corrupt and they did not trust that leadership to work for them. So they voted for somebody who they saw as strong. But since then, there have never been elections again. They are holding on to the Gaza Strip with force. There is no freedom of speech there. So anybody who wants to say something negative against Hamas can actually be killed for it. But I want all of you to know one thing: Israel is strong. Israel will win. This is not a state-ending threat. It is not an existential threat. This is an unfortunate, horrible surprise attack, but Israel will overcome and Israel will defeat Hamas.